Today I'll be running around Central Park with 5 watches to see which one is the most accurate as we dive deep into the data. I'm very excited to see how they all compare. This video is sponsored by Perplexity Computer, but more on them later. They did help me build the tool to analyze all the data. So I'm training for a fall marathon this year, and one of the biggest challenges I've had running 4 or 5 marathons already is that my GPS watch will always show an inaccurate pacing. I don't get the right distance. I don't know if I'm doing the right workouts with the right distance and pacing because my watch could be all over the place. And because I want to run my fastest marathon this year, I want to make sure I have the best tool, the best GPS watch as I train for this marathon this year. So today I'll be running with the Garmin Forerunner 970, the Apple Watch Ultra 3, the Coros Apex 4, the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra 2, and the Garmin Fenix 8. Everyone says Garmin's the best running watches, so we had to put 2 of them in there. We'll look at distance, pacing, heart rate, power, and a whole bunch of other information. So if you love data, sit down, grab some popcorn, and let's dive in.
Now, running in Central Park is too easy. The GPS, there's trees obviously, clouds can also impact it, but you need a direct line of sight to the sky. If you have multi-band, that's where it works better in the city. So we want to make the conditions a little more harsh. So we're starting outside of Central Park first. We're running to Central Park. Tall buildings, obviously that impacts the view of the sky. Luckily today it's a bright blue sky, so there's no clouds. That's a win, but we want to see in these harder conditions with tall buildings, if you're in a major city, are these going to struggle? Which one's going to win? Which is the best watch for the best GPS in a city like this? Wow, I'm already done. All right, so now we're in the city. Tall buildings, GPS is going to struggle. Obviously there's trees here, but there are moments where it's a clear view of the sky, and I want to do it outside of Central Park first because that's where the hardest point is going to be. And these buildings do make it harder. Like, you might get more jiggity jaggedy, your distance might be longer, your pace will be off, especially in Chicago. So it's really important, at least for me, to have a watch that can handle major cities. If you're always training in rural areas, you don't need it, but I want something that works for world major marathons, works when I'm training in New York. Central Park should be easy, but we'll look at the data. Okay, now we're gonna enter Central Park, see how these watches compare on this path. So let's do this. We've gotta be careful as we enter. We've just entered Central Park. We're gonna see how they fare. Obviously, as you can see, there's trees, but like there's open gaps to the sky. It's a very hot day today. It's gonna be tough, but we got all the watches spread out. Let's see who the winner is, because that's the watch I'm gonna use to train for my fall marathon. All right, midway update, we're about 5 miles in. 43 on the Amazfit, 835 on the Forerunner 970, 28 on the Apex 4, 11 rolling mile on the Ultra 3, and 750 on the Phoenix. So they're all kind of like close, but it just shows you how different they can be. You're racing, you're looking at that time, you could be 10 seconds behind, but it tells you you're 10 seconds faster. This is why GPS is so important. All right, hour and 26 minutes, 2.5 miles on the Garmin, 9.4 miles on the Amazfit, 9.05 on the Google Fitbit Air, which is using the iPhone GPS, and 9.5 miles on the Garmin Forerunner 970, 9.43 on the Coros Apex 4, 9.51 on the Apple Watch Ultra 3, and 9.31 on the Garmin Fenix. Very interesting. Maybe it's because I haven't used it in a while. But these just show you how different the distances can be, and your pace is calculated on time and distance. Time, they're all going to be pretty good at. A distance is where they're going to struggle at, and when your distance is so different, your pace is going to show up different while you're running. So if you're trying to hit a certain time or you're trying to maintain a certain pace, so this is why it's so important to have the best GPS watch possible as I train and race my fastest marathon this year. So let's dive into the lab and see what numbers we actually get. Now, as you know, I had all the data, but no easy way to compare it all in one place. That's where I built this tool with today's sponsor, Perplexity Computer. I told it, take the GPS data from 5 watches running the same Central Park loop, compare each one against the true distance, calculate the drift percentage, and show me a ranked leaderboard by accuracy. Now we can easily see the drift percentages and the GPS tracks, how it compares on an actual map, and maybe understand why the raw data might be different from watch to watch, and better understand which watch is best for you. The best part of all this is I did not know how to code. I told it in plain English how to make this happen. I want to start building the largest database of GPS or watch data in Central Park. So go ahead and upload your data at the link below. You'll be able to see how much drift your watch has from the actual distance. Thank you again, Perplexity Computer, for sponsoring this video. Remember, there's a link in the description to try it out for yourself. So this is the GPS watch comparison app. You can actually go ahead and upload fit files. I wanted to create a way where we could have a leaderboard where people could go run their own laps around Central Park, upload their fit file data, and then we could see a correlation on the best rankings of the best watch over time. So if you are interested in that, maybe we start to make this a thing that we update and use every single video. But you can type in the brand of the watch model, the display name, and then upload the file. You can see the interactive GPS map with all the watches that I used by the color. I did end up also running some of it outside of Central Park because there's just more buildings, and when you're in Manhattan,
your GPS is going to be worse when you're running in the streets rather than in Central Park. So I wanted to kind of get some extra data just in case. Now, at a high level, the best watch was the Garmin Forerunner 970. And not too far behind was the Apple Watch Ultra 3. Very, very close, which was interesting. The Garmin Fenix 8 was like the worst one out of them for some reason. I don't know why. And this isn't perfect science because I'm wearing all 5 of these watches on my arms. I try to keep enough distance as much as possible, but just know this isn't perfect. And then I wore a chest heart rate strap that was connected to the Forerunner 970 to use as my baseline for heart rate accuracy. Which device won the heart rate ranking? Obviously, the Forerunner 970 was the control. The Apple Watch Ultra 3 was the closest for heart rate accuracy. The Garmin Fenix 8 not far behind, and then the Apex 4, and then the T-Rex Ultra 2. All still relatively very close. Like close enough where I don't think it matters for heart rate accuracy for all of these watches. But if you do want the best of the best, Apple Watch Ultra 3. When it came to overall distance, I actually stopped my watch when the Forerunner 970 hit 9.5 miles, just to see how close everyone else was. The Ultra 3 was the closest at 9.52. The Fenix 8 was the farthest, almost 0.2 miles less than, which I was like, that's unique and different. Elevation-wise, they're all within about 20 to 30 feet of each other. Cadence, relatively close. The Forerunner 970 seemed to be the farthest one off of everyone else. Not sure why that was, but I was wearing that on my left wrist. For the power graphs, we can see that the trends were relatively close. It seems like the Garmin watches tend to be closer together, and then everyone else was kind of together. So it was like 2 different parties in a way. For calories and pace, I think this is where calories, you're going to be way all over the place. Our calories range from 950 calories all the way up to 1300 calories. For calories, it looks like everyone seemed to somewhat agree around 1300 calories, except for the Amazfit said 950 calories. I don't always trust this data, but looking at trends is okay. And for general pace, we had around 830 to 907 minute per mile pace, which is a pretty large range. And obviously we know the mileages were different. The time should be exactly the same. And because the mileages were different, you're going to get different pacing. So when you're racing, you want to make sure you're getting the closest distance and pacing to that specific race so that way you hit your specific times. And that's how important a GPS smartwatch is. Now let's quickly look at the GPS tracks, because looking at it on a map makes more sense and it's just easier to understand how things looked and why some of the data might actually be different. Now this is where it gets interesting. We're looking at the interactive GPS tracks right here. We see the Forerunner 970 really drifted off on 10th Avenue here. I think that's where you start to see more distance than you should have actually ran. I did not run into these buildings or into this park. The T-Rex Ultra 2 had a little bit of drift as well, but the other guys seemed to stay relatively close. Over here, the Fenix 8 seemed to jump away from the group, and the Fenix 8, the red, just keeps jumping out, especially, yeah, over here, it's on the other side of this. Here, I did a couple of U-turn circles because there was a red light, but just seeing this GPS track, you can see how different some of these watches might be. The Fenix 8 again, rounding all the way outside into the buildings. We got up to Columbus Circle. Look at the Fenix 8 really pushing the envelope on it, trying to be accurate. Everyone else seemed to be relatively close on top of each other. Maybe the Apex 4 is kind of like coming out. The Ultra 3 is right there, and then the Forerunner and the T-Rex Ultra 2 are neck and neck. Once we get into Central Park, I think that's where it gets much smoother. As you can see, most watches are able to handle. You also have clouds that could affect the GPS data as well. It seems like it wasn't too bad. Maybe over here, the Fenix 8 keeps going outside of the place I actually ran, but all the other watches just tend to be right on top of each other, glued. The Fenix 8 adding extra mileage, it looks like. And that's why the pacing on the Fenix 8 might have been way off, because it was just jumping out. So overall, looking at our leaderboard, which GPS watch is best? It looks like if I were to pick, I'd probably pick the Forerunner 970 or the Apple Watch Ultra 3. The Apex 4 and the T-Rex Ultra 2 underestimated the mileage a little bit, and they probably would have had me run more. I think if you're training, it's better to run more than run less. Whereas the Ultra 3, something I've also noticed is the Ultra 3 tends to add more miles than the Garmin watch. Whereas the Ultra 2 and Ultra 1, for some reason, were always under my Garmin, and now the Ultra 3 is always above the Garmin. I'm not sure if that's a software update in the new Watch OS, or if the new hardware in the Watch 3 tends to now overestimate the mileage that I'm doing. Whereas before, I was like, yeah, if I run with the Apple Watch, I know I'm going to run extra mileage, and I'm going to be more trained if I was using the Garmin. But now, if I use the Apple Watch, I'm going to be running less miles. Like, yeah, it's 0.2 here, 0.2 there, but that adds up to like 5 miles over a 12-month training block. Not sure what was up with the Fenix 8. It seemed to be way off compared to everyone else. The Amazfit T-Rex Ultra 2, it was okay, but it wasn't great. But in terms of heart rate accuracy, they were all strong. GPS, they were decent. I would probably pick the Ultra 3 and 970. And I think those are the 2 watches I'll be training with for this upcoming marathon. And I'll keep testing new watches as we go. So comment below, what other watches do you want to see me test in future videos? Make sure to subscribe, turn notifications, follow me at Shervin Shares on Instagram. And Perplexity Computer, thank you for sponsoring this video once again. We do have a link down below if you want to try this tool yourself. If you want to upload your own GPS watch data and do a comparison in Central Park, you can do that right here, and it'll rank it against the leaderboard. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.